So in our last class, we discussed how exorcism instigated debates between trained physicians as distinguished from lay people who treated other people's ailments. And these physicians who disagreed in the courtroom and in the pamphlets that followed, and how they differed in their interpretations of the various symptoms of demon possession. In a similar manner, exorcisms prompted religious contests between Catholics, Protestants, mostly Puritans, and secular authorities. Many argued that whoever had or appeared to have the power to cast out demons would be seen as the more credible and authoritative religious authority. As John Darrell, who we're going to talk about in a second, said, if the Church of England have this power to cast out devils, then the Church of Rome is a false church. For there can be but one true church, the principal mark of which, as they say, is to work miracles. And of them, this is the greatest, namely to cast out devils. So this kind of demonstrates, encapsulates some of the stakes that were involved in exorcisms at this particular moment. In many ways, demon possessions and the exorcisms that followed were more about confessional politics and competition for religious authority than anything else. Those involved believed that a dramatic and successful exorcism would result in the conversion of the people who were watching or who heard about it after the fact. In England, many believed that exorcisms were a serious threat to the established religion and secular authority. The Church of England, which was the official denomination of the state, found itself fighting on two religious fronts at once, against Protestants eager for further Reformation, who were known as the Puritans, and against Catholics who were hoping for an end to the schism with Rome. The campaign against exorcism within England spoke to the Church of England's need to maintain their spiritual authority. Both Puritans and Catholics made claims to this authority which the official church could not tolerate. Exorcisms would often attract large crowds and generated a lot of discussion in print, and therefore can be interpreted as, and were interpreted as, a political problem. The way that the Church of England decides to deal with this is to basically take the stance that there are no more miracles. If someone claims to work miracles, he must be a fraud, because that which cannot happen does not happen. And if someone claims to be a prophet, he must either be a lunatic or a fanatic. And you see this in basically the way that the secular authority deals with exorcisms and cases of possession at this time. And they're more concerned to determine that demon-possessed people are frauds in order to avoid this problem of having to determine whether or not the exorcisms are legitimate or not, which we discussed a little bit in our last class. Both Puritans and Catholics sought to establish their own authority through exorcisms, and the differences between them reflect their doctrinal divide that characterized many of the debates raised during the period of the Reformation. In Protestant exorcisms, prayer and preaching and fasting was interspersed with the reading of the Bible. The Bible often provoked a violent reaction from someone who was possessed by the devil. Power of the printed word within Protestant theology was key here. The devil tempts those possessed to tear books or to destroy the Bible. The exorcism primarily consisted of prayer, which is how the possessed was thought to be delivered. On the other hand, Catholic demoniacs were often provoked by the presence of sacred objects and various rituals. They reacted not only to the Eucharistic host, but also to various religious relics, holy water, the sign of the cross, as well as the Bible. And the reaction of the demon-possessed to the objects and rituals of the Catholic Church, the devil was seen or interpreted as legitimating Catholic doctrine and practice, and therefore Catholic authority over Protestants. These differences can be demonstrated through a number of examples. The case of the possession of Mary Glover, for instance, that we discussed in our last class, was wrapped up in the confessional politics surrounding demon possession in general. After the trial and sentencing of Elizabeth Jackson, a series of high-profile exorcisms were performed on Glover by the Puritan preacher John Darrell. Glover's dispossession took place over a period of several weeks, during which a number of ministers gathered together to fast and pray in the Glover household. Their presence garnered a significant amount of attention in the town, and many came to see the efforts of the ministers to dispossess the girls. You can imagine a small home packed to the brim with people to see this dispossession. This instance came to the attention of other religious authorities, particularly Samuel Harsnet, who saw Darrell as a threat for a number of reasons. Now, Samuel Harsnet was a representative of the official Church of England and often spoke on behalf of political authority in relation to cases of demon possession and exorcism. So Samuel Harsnet characterized Darrell as a threat for a number of reasons. First of all, his method of dispossession by prayer and fasting involved large numbers of people gathering together in prayer meetings. Darrell claimed to be able to control the devil by invoking divine grace through prayer. And this created a lot of religious fervor among his Protestant followers. Darrell was very interested in the devil's testimony through the possessed person to the value of Puritan practices like prayer and fasting or preaching and testifying. Puritans believed that the diabolic possession could be sanctified to the beholders and the possessed himself by a dispossession through prayer. So Darrell used the possessions as a way to spread his own fame as well as to propagandize the Puritan message that he was trying to promote. Harsnet tried to counter Darrell's message by publishing his own account of the exorcisms, and this account sought to establish Darrell as a fraud. Interestingly, Harsnet was not only concerned with Puritan exorcisms, but also concerned with Catholic exorcisms as well. And you can see this in this pamphlet written by Harsnet at the time, which is a declaration of egregious popish impostures, which was about a series of exorcisms performed by Weston, who was a Jesuit priest. But it's interesting to note here that Samuel Harsnet publishes on both John Darrell's dispossessions, the Puritan, as well as the Catholic dispossessions that were going on as well. John Darrell and Samuel Harsnet went back and forth in print, writing against each other. Of course, Harsnet is trying to prove in his pamphlets that John Darrell is a fraud, and John Darrell writes in response to Harsnet's claim. So it becomes this kind of moment of using exorcism as a form of propaganda and religious polemics that went back and forth for a couple of years around the John Darrell cases. Now, at this point, more effort was made to suppress Darrell and public Puritan and Catholic exorcisms, more generally speaking. In 1604, the state characterized their suppression of exorcisms in Canon 72, which stated that any minister is forbidden, unless licensed by his bishop, to take part in or conduct public meetings of prayer and fasting under the pain of suspension for the first offense, excommunication for the second, and deposition from the ministry for the third. Nor was any minister under pretext of an alleged possession to use prayer and fasting for casting out of devils under pain of censure as an impostor and deposition from his ministry. So you can see in this canon actually that they're targeting Puritans specifically, even though we're in England, it's a Protestant nation. However, there's still this sense that the more dedicated, the hotter form of Protestants could be politically dangerous and need to be controlled, particularly around the topic of exorcism.